Well, it's a busy day. We got breaking news in the NFL. Trade deadline day gets off to a fast start this morning. The Browns have traded their edge rusher Darius Smith to the Detroit Lions. Smith has been a prime target this year's market and fills a hole for the Lions with Aiden Hutchinson, of course, possibly done for the season with that broken leg. Smith registered 5 sacks for the Browns before the deal. He's the 10th season they are currently in the NFL. He has 63 when it comes to his sack numbers, and maybe more coming now, heading to the Big D with the Lions contending for a Super Bowl this season. For more on this, I want to bring in our Jonathan Jones. And JJ, this will be a busy day for you, but your reaction to this first deal coming before that deadline?
Yeah, Brandon, this is something we've been anticipating for several days now. I think you and I even talked about Darius Smith going to Detroit 24 hours ago on this here program. So Darius Smith now going to Detroit. It's going to be a 5th and a 6th that goes back to Cleveland. Cleveland sending Darius Smith and a 7th there to Detroit. Had Cleveland won on Sunday, I'm not certain this deal would have been done. However, of course, Cleveland losing that game against the Chargers, their playoff hopes dashed if they really hadn't already been dashed before this. But we know that Detroit has been in the market for a pass rusher, and this is the one that made the most sense. Darius Smith, of course, very familiar with the NFC North, having played with the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, now joining the Lions. And maybe a year or two from now, you and I, Brandon, are here talking about Darius Smith going to the Chicago Bears to finish out the NFC North quartet. You have a guy who has been very active, getting pressures on the quarterback, getting sacks on the quarterback, especially these past 3 weeks. Would the Browns like to have kept Darius? Sure, of course. He still has a year remaining on his contract, but that's non-guaranteed money. They have already paid the overwhelming majority of his salary, and so the Detroit Lions, not really having to fit him under the cap, bring him in and get some immediate pass rush help. There in the open, you talked about Aiden Hutchinson potentially being out for the entire season for the Detroit Lions, certainly the rest of the regular season. Maybe mid-February in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. That's still a very far way out, of course, for these Lions. But outside of Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil, this is a group that doesn't have anyone who has more than 2 sacks so far on the season, halfway through the 2024 year. So getting Darius helps out that Aaron Glenn defense, can add some rush to this defense, a group that has been playing a whole lot of man coverage this year, trying to piece it together and survive in the post-Aiden Hutchinson regular season. Again, this is one that we anticipated, and it finally gets done this morning. Darius Smith to Detroit.
All right, so that's one of the big names as we discussed leading into today, in that deal now sending him to the Lions. Could there be another big edge rusher that we might see move today before that 5 p.m. deadline?
So the Packers were making some calls around. Some teams were making some calls to Green Bay, however you want to frame it, on Preston Smith. That is one that I could potentially see taking place later on today. We just had Baron Browning. He was one of the other names outside of Darius Smith who could be on the move. Denver trading him to the Arizona Cardinals yesterday. So a team to watch for could be the Atlanta Falcons, who they've been trying to generate a pass rush for some time. And so that could be a team, whether it's a Preston Smith or someone else out there on the market. That's a team I'm keeping an eye on when it comes to that. Meanwhile, when it comes to wide receiver, Adam Thielen and the Carolina Panthers, right? He could be a name that's on the move with a wide receiver needy team. Mike Williams with the Jets, he is another name that we could see be on the move later on today. We still have a good, solid, quick math, 7 hours until the trade deadline. Don't anticipate any big names. We're not going to see a Christian McCaffrey-like trade today, but a lot of moves should be made before the 4 p.m. Eastern deadline.
Do not wish that upon us, JJ. Let's just keep it even keel throughout the rest of the day, my friend. We'll see you soon here later throughout the day on HQ. As always, that breaking news of Darius Smith, I should say, heading to Detroit. Appreciate it, JJ. Taking a look at it when it comes to the Lions here. And yes, a lot of people believe they will be in the Super Bowl. But, of course, this is the rest of their slate the rest of the way, because they only had that lone loss back in Week 2 against the Bucs. But after that, of course, you got Week 10, Sunday Night Football, starting there with the Texans, Jags, Colts, Bears, and then ending the season with the Vikings in their own division in Week 18.
have some breaking news from the NFL, where that NFL trade deadline, 4 p.m. hour is closely approaching. The Washington Commanders have acquired cornerback Marshon Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints. That is the very latest from our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. Lattimore was a 4-time Pro Bowler with New Orleans. It's a huge addition for the Washington Commanders, who are off to a 7-2 start and have sole position of first place in the NFC East. Getting a look at his profile again. 8 seasons with the Saints, 4-time Pro Bowler, 2017 NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, 71 pass breakups, now on his way to Washington to join the Commanders. And let's welcome in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, to tell us more about this. People have been talking about it. We were talking with Pete and Kyle a little bit earlier today, JJ, and they were saying, hey, this makes perfect sense. You were talking about it earlier today. How did this all go down? Walk us through it, JJ.
So the Commanders, with Adam Peters as general manager, they've been operating very quietly around the trade market, sniffing around. Was it going to be a corner? Was it going to be a receiver? We had known that the Washington Commanders needed a corner. They're feeling very good about where they are in the NFL right now, feeling very positively about the second half of the season. But the Commanders and the previous regime very likely missed on a first-round corner and Emmanuel Forbes. And so that sort of set the team back a little bit at that position. So with some salary cap space, with some draft capital, the Commanders, with a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, can make a deal for a player like Marshon Lattimore. The Saints didn't want to give him away, and certainly I don't think that they did. We still are waiting on the trade compensation for this, but I'm certain that it will be a day 2 pick when it all shakes out, whether that's a second-round pick or a third-round pick and then some to get this over the finish line. Look, the Commanders weren't just going against themselves for Marshon Lattimore. The Kansas City Chiefs were very, very interested in adding Marshon Lattimore. This after adding DeAndre Hopkins and Joshua Uche in the past couple of weeks. Other teams that were involved include the Los Angeles Chargers and the Baltimore Ravens. We know the Ravens have been banged up in their defensive backfield. The Chargers have been close on a number of players, have been interested at corner, at tight end, at offensive line, specifically at guard. But those were, as I understood it, the 4 teams that were involved on Marshon Lattimore. But like we said, right around noon Eastern or so, about an hour ago, that it became clear that the Commanders were very serious, very real contenders that were emerging for Lattimore, and now they get that deal done.
So, JJ, the Commanders, they're sitting at 7-2. They are leading their division. We see this move, Lattimore joining that team. Are there any other moves? Are they done dealing? What are you hearing about the Commanders as we're getting closer and closer to that 4 p.m. deadline?
This would seem to be the only deal of consequence for the Washington Commanders. Could they, with someone else, potentially, trade a future day 3 pick? Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out for any team under the sun right now. But as it relates to the Commanders, this is the business. This is the trade. This was the big trade, right? They didn't get involved in Brandon Ayuk, right? They sent away Jahan Dotson, and so they bided their time, they remained quiet, and now with 7 wins at about the halfway point of this season, as you note, atop that division, trying to make a push right now because they see this window, the Commanders do, with Jaden Daniels playing like an offensive rookie of the year, with the defense playing the way that it is, and knowing that they're going to have to upgrade at corner. Do you want to do that in the offseason? Do you want to do that via the draft? Because that didn't work out for the previous regime in Washington 2 years ago with Emmanuel Forbes, or do you want to do it right now? So again, very likely a day 2 pick to get Marshon Lattimore and that contract, and you'll figure out the contract if you're the Commanders, right? This year, the Saints had already restructured him, so you're going to get him at the vet minimum. Next year, I think he has a base salary of about $16 million. You'll be able to work through that and worry about that later. Right now, it's about winning now and getting quality players in that building to continue to build around your franchise quarterback.
Let's talk about the Saints, JJ, because they have lost 7 in a row. They just fired Dennis Allen. Now they're, starting to be sellers, of course, as expected at the trade deadline. A fire sale in their future. What does this mean for New Orleans?
I think this is probably going to be it for New Orleans in terms of trading away assets before the deadline. I would be very surprised if in 3 hours from now, New Orleans has sent any other player away. I don't think, and this is what we said yesterday when they fired Dennis Allen, this is not a team that wants to crater the team's culture by trading away a bunch of players. Also, because of the way that they have pushed out so much money into the future, it almost doesn't make a lot of sense for them to, from a financial standpoint, from a future salary cap standpoint, to trade away players. That's not the way it works with the Saints. It works that way with a lot of other teams, but the way the Saints do their financial business, it wouldn't necessarily work for them. So you get a premium pick here for Marshon Lattimore. You know the season did not go the way that you wanted it to with the Super Bowl in New Orleans, with the high hopes before the season, and certainly after 2 games of the season where you were scoring at a higher clip than any other team in the NFL really in the past several years. So a disappointing season for the Saints, but they can make something of it right now by trading away Marshon Lattimore. I don't see a fire sale happening with New Orleans. This should be it, and then it's going to be an offseason filled with a number of decisions around a number of veteran players. Will Derek Carr return under that contract that he currently has? Who will be the next head coach of the team? Will that head coach retain Clint Kubiak as offensive coordinator, or will he go elsewhere? A whole lot of questions down in the Big Easy for the New Orleans Saints, but right now they at least know their future, that they will have an extra day 2 pick and likely then some by sending away Marshon Lattimore.
JJ, we certainly appreciate it. I know it is not the last segment we'll do with you today as we approach that 4 p.m. deadline. Joining us here for that breaking news, if you're just joining us here on HQ, Marshon Lattimore heading to the Washington Commanders. Make sure you stay locked in to HQ all day today, all football season long. News, highlights, scores, everything you need. We got it right here on CBS Sports HQ. Gentlemen, while we are at the desk, we have some more news that's coming in, of course. Mike Williams being traded to the Steelers. The Jets are acquiring a 5th-round pick in return. We knew that the Steelers were in the market for another receiver. If we fast forward all the way back a couple of months ago, it was Brandon Ayuk. That obviously didn't work out. Your initial thoughts? You have some about Mike Williams going to the Steelers.
Yeah, I thought this was a perfect fit to go along with Pickens, because now you have Russell Wilson at quarterback. I think he's a better thrower than Justin Fields is. Now it gives them another weapon. They really don't have anyone, in my opinion, besides Pickens. So if you got another big body that can go down and get the ball down the field when he's healthy, I think this is a great fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I don't love this fit in large part because I think...
Who would you have? They need help at receiver. They're on top of the division.
I would have got Thielen. I would have went and got Thielen.
Carolina's not going to move Thielen. They don't have any receivers left. They already got rid of Johnson.
So? And Mingo.
And Mingo. They have nobody left. They got 3 receivers.
What's it matter? What's it matter? They're not going anywhere. Get draft picks. I would have gotten Thielen. I mean, but he does fit what they want to do. Moon balls. Isn't he? Aren't they? When you think about it, aren't they both 50-50 ball kind of guys?
Yeah,
they go up and get. It's perfect for the moon ball because he's not going to throw anything into the middle of the field anyway. So it works for what they want to do. I don't love this move. If you gave it a grade, give it a grade.
Yeah.
Moon balls. Give it a grade.
A.
You give it an A?
I think they
you're
needed.
Just full of A's and A+s right now.
Yeah, only come on every so often, so I'm going to be very generous with my
Captain
grade.
Sunshine over here. I give it a C+.
Wow,
Oh, that's horrible.
At best.
Is that not a better football team with Mike Williams on the roster?
Have you watched Mike Williams? What has he done?
He is, when he's healthy.
When he's healthy, you're just putting. When he's healthy, he's coming off a major surgery. He was never a burner to begin with.
Yeah, but he was never fit. Aaron Rodgers, the head coach, Aaron Rodgers, the general manager, really didn't want him to begin this.
No, he didn't want him. But look, is he better than? I'd make sure Austin got more involved in the passing
He's a
game.
little slot receiver. He's a gadget guy.
No, you got 2 big body guys now.
Right, you need 2 big body guys.
Moon balls. Moon balls.
Moon balls.
Oh, there you go. So now you're going to have Rick saying this all day long.
Moon balls.
All right, so that's some more breaking news. Mike Williams going to the Steelers. Marshon Lattimore going to the Commanders. It was an A for the Commanders, A+, and then A and a C. C+? C for
what?
the Steelers.
For the Steelers, C+.
That's horrible.
Okay.
Don't listen to that grade. It's wrong.
We're going to be doing much more of this all day long right here on CBS Sports HQ as we see some more moves going on ahead of that 4 p.m. deadline.
Moon balls.
That's what Rick is going to be talking about on With the First Pick, by the way, with Ryan Wilson. They're going to be talking about, what do you
Moon moon balls.
There we go. You can download, follow, listen wherever you get your pods, or you can watch right now by scanning that QR code.
More breaking news as we approach the trade deadline here on CBS Sports HQ. The Packers are getting Preston Smith the Steelers are getting Preston Smith from the Packers. There's a lot going on right now. It is in exchange for a 7th-round pick. Pete, initially, you didn't quite understand it. When you heard the compensation, it made a little bit more sense to you?
Well, that's like trading a turkey sandwich for somebody. I mean, it's a 7th-round pick. How often do those things hit? So, yeah, from the Steelers' standpoint, they could always use an extra pass rusher. I mean, the Steelers love standing those guys up, and you have Watt. You have Highsmith, you have Herbert, but he's banged up a little bit. So when he's banged up a little bit, you go get another one. So from that standpoint, I understand it. From Green Bay's standpoint, I don't understand it a great deal. It makes no sense to me to get rid of a guy like Preston Smith when they're in a division race as well. So I don't understand it from their standpoint for a 7th-round pick.
Yeah, no, that's a little strange that Green Bay would give him up, but kudos to Omar Khan and Pittsburgh Steelers. Not only did they get Mike Williams, but they got another pass rusher. Now you got 4 legitimate guys. They have, coming out of the bye, they have to go to Washington, and then after that, they have all of their division games coming up. So with injuries that can occur, TJ Watt has had some durability concerns as well. This gives them insurance to have another pass rusher.
By the way, he's given every trade today. Hey, he's a happy guy today. What do you give this trade?
A.
No.
Okay, let me ask
for a 7th-round pick, you wouldn't give it now, if it was a 4th-round pick, yay. 7th-round pick, yay.
So this is my question on that. When you see, though, that they're just willing to give him up from a 7th-round pick, does that make you question maybe there's something going on behind the scenes, or they're just like, hey, we're okay?
No, maybe they like some of their younger guys. Maybe they're going to elevate a guy from the practice squad, but they're probably not going to sign him back after this year. So why not get something for him now? Because you're not going to get anything for him after the season.
Yeah, and they have young guys. I mean, Kingsley and Gbare, they need him to step up. Lucas Van Ness, they need him to step up. So I think those are some of the young guys you keep an eye on in Green Bay. I'm just of the belief of you don't give up a draft pick when you're in a playoff chase. I mean, you don't give up an edge rusher.
The only thing I would say is that they switched from an odd front to an even front with Jeff Hafley, so he may not be an ideal scheme fit for them, and they may have.
But he's played both, though. He's played both.
I know, but he's better in an odd front than an even front. He's a better fit for the Pittsburgh defense than he is for Green Bay's defense.
We're still approaching that trade deadline, but Pete, let me ask you this: the Steelers also trading for Mike Williams from the Jets, so they get a wide receiver. Looking at the moves they've made today, how do you feel about the Steelers team now compared to the beginning of the day?
Well, I think, getting a wide receiver was important. I just wouldn't have got that wide receiver. I would have went out and got Adam Thielen.
You're not going to trade Adam Thielen.
I would have found a way to get him. You could get whoever you want if you want to get it. I mean, you traded a 1st-round pick for Sam Bradford, so.
I had to. I had no choice at the time. It was the beginning of the season.
But I like what the Steelers have done because they've addressed things that they feel that there's a problem with. And when you look at the Steelers going into the season, I'm not sure they thought they'd be in this situation. They're leading the division. I'm not sure they thought they'd be there. I'm not sure they're going to stay there, but I think right now it makes sense to try and improve.
They're making moves to give them the best opportunity to stay where they're at, and they needed to get another receiver. And I know Adam Thielen, he would have been a great fit, but then Carolina has no receivers left on their roster. They only have 3 on their roster right now because Adam Thielen's on IR. So to get another big receiver that can stretch the ball vertically, and what does Russell Wilson throw?
Moon balls,
and he's an ideal moon ball receiver.
Yeah, they are. They're both 50-50 guys. I mean, Pickens and Mike Williams can go get 50-50 balls, and that's what Russell Wilson throws. At least that's what he's thrown so far since he's been there.
I'm not sure if we have their schedule coming up. I know they take on the Commanders. I don't know exactly what's after that, though. But looking at that division,
they got 3 division games after that.
They still have that going on. I mean, granted, the Ravens.
Moon balls, Amanda.
I mean, can they compete? They've been competing with the Ravens.
They have a very good defense. Yeah, they're running the ball a lot better, and I think Russell Wilson, with his moon balls, gives them opportunity to make plays down the field in the passing game.
Well, we'll know more about Russell Wilson in the coming weeks because he played a Jets team that was depleted 2.5 starters in the secondary. He played a Giants team that was down 2.5 starters in the secondary, and he struggled to get going early in those games. So we'll know more about him in the coming weeks. So far, so good. Now you're out on the road. Show me on the road against the Commanders that you can throw those moon balls and throw other passes as well. And if he does that this week, then I'll start believing.
And the Steelers defense with Preston Smith? You're feeling
another body. No, look, you can never have enough pass
rushers
ever in this league. More the merrier. So I understand it from that standpoint.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We have a lot coming up here today on HQ. A lot of, I don't know if we're going to be talking about moonballs. We'll see if the Steelers make another trade, although we are very close to the trade deadline. CBS Sports HQ, we've got it all right here.
Here are my trade grades for the Dallas Cowboys acquiring Jonathan Mingo from the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, the big news in Dallas is Dak Prescott going on injured reserve. So what do you do if you're Jerry Jones? You throw another wide receiver in the mix, right? And so to me, this is a little head-scratching because Jonathan Mingo, while a highly touted prospect, hasn't done much really in the NFL. And the fact that you're giving up a 4th-round pick in 2025 to acquire this player, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me here, especially for that high capital. Yes, there's talent, but it hasn't really been tapped into yet, and I'm not necessarily sure they're going to be able to tap into it in Dallas. So overall, I give them a D+ for this grade. I just don't know what the fit is here for this team in Dallas that's struggling in the NFC East. Meanwhile, for the Carolina Panthers, I don't know how you can't love it. Again, you're a rebuilding team. It's a wide receiver that you really haven't been using, not a part of your future. Xavier Legette is the wide receiver to follow in the building blocks of this offense in Carolina. I give them a B+ here. Again, rebuilding team in Carolina. They're not going to be a good football team for the foreseeable future. So what do? You keep piling up assets to try to hit on those players early in day 3. And if you can find those gems, you'll be able to rebuild a little bit quicker. And they're getting some help here for this trade from Dallas, getting a 4th-rounder.
The Ravens have made a move. We know they went out, they traded for Deontay Johnson at the wide receiver position, but it's being reported now that they are getting Tre'Davious White from the Rams. What does that do?
Oh, wow, that's big. I mean, the rich get richer here with the Rams, or with the Ravens, rather. It's a team that's looked really good, but I think you should be able to fit right in and be a big help to that football team.
And they've struggled on the back end.
Yep.
And with Coach Orr taking over as a defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson did a phenomenal job in that secondary and losing Mike McDonald, but they've really struggled on the back end. And if you have to poke a hole in the Baltimore Ravens team right now, it's the secondary. So getting a guy that's coming off a couple of injuries, I think he came off the ACL, not in the big plans with the LA Rams, so getting another vet back there I think will help.
This is a classic case of name over game because he was benched with the Rams. I mean, and that's not exactly a great cornerback-heavy team. They got a bunch of young guys.
Yeah, but they're going young.
And Darius Williams is playing too, and he's not young. I just don't think he played very well early in the season, and therefore the Rams were willing to part with him. What do the Ravens like to do, though? They like to play a lot of man-to-man, and I don't know at his age, coming off that injury, if he's capable of doing that. But again, you take a shot. They probably didn't give him whatever they gave him. It probably isn't much, so why not?
Well, look what it is. I mean, it's
a 7th-round pick.
They unloaded him.
Yeah, that's basically what they did. In fact, the Rams kind of said they were going to do him a favor because he wasn't playing to allow him to go someplace to play. You don't want him playing.
No, and that's a way to get some of the salary off your books, too, as well. So when you're just flipping nickels at the end, you're trying to get rid of salary as well.
Rick, I've seen you throw out a bunch of A's today when you've been grading some trades. Grade this one for the Ravens.
Oh, boy. If he can stay healthy, I'm going to give him an A, just because I'm on an A day.
Well, they need it that bad,
If he can stay healthy and go to his pre-injury ways, I mean, that's a big...
Who cares? 7th-rounders for 7th-rounders.
They got hurt guys in Baltimore right now, and you know what? If he is an undesirable type character guy, if that's what you think, or if he's too old, well, the Ravens can get the most out of it.
Listen,
that's about the best culture in the league.
I've got 3 times in my career a 7th-round pick from my mother, but I had to trade to get her back. So
you value your picks? Is that what it is?
Oh, I used to get a lot of picks in the later rounds.
If you make a move, it's an A for Rick Spielman.